to the Thought Snob Podcast. I'm Paula Swope. Let's get snobby. So if this is your first time tuning into the Thought Snob Podcast, welcome. Or if you haven't been listening for a while, I want to give you an update. We've switched up the format some. I'm no longer doing guest episodes all the time. These are more commentary episodes that we're moving towards. You guys seem to enjoy those short, digestible talks. But the unique thing about the new format is I don't know what I'm going to talk about until the last minute. My husband, Will, who's the producer of the podcast, will either ask me a question or give me a topic, and then I talk about it off the top of my head. No script, no rehearsing, no preparation whatsoever. It's whatever comes out of my mouth. So, with that said, let's see what he has for me today.
This last week, I was in one of the dealerships that I work with on a regular basis and was talking with a new young salesperson, and we were talking about how he could improve his sales and how he could do a better job. And in doing that, we started talking about his goals. And when we started talking about his goals, he immediately said, I want to sell 15 cars a month. And I said, why? And he didn't have an answer for that. I guess as we went along, I started asking him about personal goals. Does he want to have a family? Does he want to have a house? What kind of personal goals does he have? And what motivates him? He said a phrase that I found very interesting. He said he has no motivations. In other words, he has no goals. He has no plans. He hasn't even really started to think about the rest of his life. And I urged him to do so, but would like your thoughts for maybe younger people that are just getting started out in life, how they could really identify what they want their life to look like.
How old is he?
He is in his early to mid-20s.
Is this his first job?
I don't know if it's his first job, but I would guess that it's his first potential career.
Well, as far as, he is a good example to, I guess, get into a topic like this. But really, what it boils down to is your question is, do I have any guidance for young people about which path to take with their life? Or is that the question?
Not necessarily. How to identify the path that they really want to take. And I'll go ahead and tell you what I talked to this young man about. If I was in his shoes, what I would do is find a quiet place to sit and reflect and imagine different ways that his life could go and really go deep into those scenarios. What would his life look like if he marries his current partner? What would his life look like if they had kids? What kind of house would that involve? What age does he want to retire? What is he passionate about? What does he want to be able to do in his spare time? These are all things that I suggested that if he identified those, he could extrapolate that out into, okay, I want to do X, Y, and Z. X, Y, and Z costs this much money. Therefore, I need to make this much money a month to be able to do the things that I want to do.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. The one thing that I wish I would have been taught in, I'm talking, I mean, middle school, I could have probably began to process this information if teachers would start teaching people how to communicate with the universe the right way early on in life. That is the key to figuring out what you should do. You have to get to know yourself very well, not what other people tell you. Because people will tell you who you are, they'll tell you what you should do, they'll tell you how you should look, how you should think. People love to do that. And we go through life and we listen to other people and we do what other people want us to do and we don't do what we want to do. And that's where everything gets all fucked up. That's a source of unhappiness. That's a source of not making as much money as you want to make. It's a source of hiding your talents because you feel like you have to do what so and so told you to do, which might be punching a time clock from 9 to 5 in a factory. And you hate doing that, but you're doing it because you feel like you got to do it. Okay. All your motivations are coming from outside of yourself. You're dependent on another human being for a paycheck, or you're dependent on another human being to give you a promotion, to make you happy. What they need to teach us in school is nothing can make you happy. No one can make you happy. What makes you happy is yourself being able to control your emotions, doing what you want to do versus what other people want you to do. And we are not taught to live our life that way. We just aren't. K through 12 is a system that programs us and gets us ready for the workforce. That's what K through 12 does. And that's when really we develop our biggest ideals about ourselves, our ideologies, our self-confidence, our self-esteem, our memories. That's when we're socialized. That's when we're programmed, and we look up to these adults and we see them living in a box. Most people live in a box. It's very rare to come across people who don't conform. I call myself a former conformer, okay? That's what a lot of my book is about. SNOB stands for See New Objective Beliefs. That means look at the facts, look at what's true to you and your authentic self, not the subjective opinions of others and what other people want you to do. So the very first thing that a young person needs to do is they need to figure out what lights them up, what brings them excitement. What's your talent? What are you good at? If you are really, really, really good at something and you enjoy doing it and you can monetize that, you will never work a day in your life. That's what's called a life purpose. And a lot of things can go into that. The only way that you will ever figure out what you're supposed to be doing is if you go within. And that's where you have to learn how to communicate with the universe so the universe will do the dirty work for you and get you on that life path. That doesn't mean you're not going to have to put forth effort. Of course, you're going to have to put forth effort. There's a reason that they say, follow your dream. You can't just sit there. I mean, you have to take inspired action. But when you learn how to communicate with the divine the right way, then every action you take is inspired. It's on purpose. It's not by chance. And I will use the terms God, universe, the divine interchangeably. I'm just referring to the higher power where we get all of our power, where we get our creativity. That's the place you have to tap into to figure out what you want to do and what life path you need to take. The signs are usually there early on in childhood. I was never, I was different. I've always been different. I wasn't like the other kids. And instead of embracing that uniqueness, I was taught that it was wrong. Um, and so I conformed to fit in, and it didn't get me anywhere. And I can give you an example, and this is just a silly little example. Like in gym class, oh God, I hated it. I mean, I got sick to my stomach thinking about having to go to gym class and playing fucking dodgeball. Like, I hated it. I didn't want to play dodgeball. The thought of a big ball flying at me is fuck that shit. But all of the other kids, oh, dodgeball! Oh, God, dodgeball! And I'd be like, oh, fuck. I just hated it. So that little sign was there in me that I was not meant for things like that. And if I went ahead and participated in things that made me upset and caused me stress and anxiety, then I would pay the price. And because I wouldn't speak up and do what I really wanted to do, because everything I wanted to do was out of the norm, and I knew I'd get in trouble for it because I would, I would look deviant if I didn't do all this stuff the other kids did. I was not meant for public school. I was not meant for that. If anybody was not meant to be thrown in with all those people, it was me. And because I stayed like on edge all the time because I knew I was going to have to do all this stuff I didn't want to do, I stayed pretty stressed with a lot of anxiety as a child, and I stayed sick a lot and didn't live up to my true potential at all because I wouldn't be who I really wanted to be because I didn't know. I mean, nobody told me I could do that. I thought that I had to be like everybody else. That's where you get messed up. That's where you get messed up. You've got to do what lights you up, what you're good at. I was no good at sports. Nobody wanted me on their team, and I don't blame them. I was no good at that. If I would have been forced to play dodgeball every day of my life, I'd be dead. There's no doubt about that. I would not be sitting here right now. I'd be gone. Been gone a long time ago. So you've got to, when it comes to your life path, you got to figure out who you are and what you want to do, which means you got to say no to dodgeball if you don't like dodgeball. You got to say no to anything that you don't want to do and that really, really, really upsets you. Okay. Now, this is life. You're going to have to do things you don't want to do every now and again. I'm talking if you're having to do something consistently day in and day out that you hate and causes you anxiety and stress, you're never going to get on your life path. You got to say no to that shit. And you got to say yes to what you do want to do, no matter who it pisses off, no matter how much money it costs, no matter how many relationship ties have to be severed. It's your life, and you have to listen to your soul, not to Tom, Dick, and Harry over here and Aunt Jane, who has really not accomplished anything. And you do not ever need to take advice from somebody that you would not exchange your life with them in an instant, okay? So when you say, what I'm getting to here is when you say yes to things that you don't want to do, the universe takes that as that's how you're communicating with the universe. You're telling the universe that you do want to do that because you're doing it. You're not doing what you want to do. So you're not in alignment with what you want. Your energy gets all out of whack, all out of balance. And that is one of the things that causes people to make bad decisions. Bad decisions personally, professionally, health-wise, it trickles down. I mean, it's like a snowball effect if you're not on the right life path. And so if a young person has never thought about their, let's say, what excites them. I know I kinda didn't. I just kinda shoved that down because what excited me, I was taught to believe was completely out of reach for me. And what I really wanted to do was I wanted to create things. I wanted to sing, and, those are the things that I wanna do, but I was told I wasn't good enough. And so I let all that go, and when you don't have anybody supporting you and you've got everybody saying, "Well, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. You need to go to the factory and get a job so you'll have good, health insurance and steady pay." And that's secure, you've gotta be secure. Well, to me, that is not security. That is another human being in charge of your life. So that's what I mean by conforming. You go against everything you stand for. You need to think about what lights you up. What are your core values? Okay. My number one, I don't have to think about that for a minute. My number one core value is authenticity. I cannot be anybody but who I am. And I have played a role many times that acting like not myself. And again, it didn't get me anywhere. Now, I haven't done that in a very long time, but it took a while to develop the confidence to step into that skin. And once you step into that skin, there's no stepping out because no other skin feels any better than your own. And when you are completely authentic and you don't give a damn if people like you or not, or if people agree with you or not, then it's freedom. It's like, whew, it's freedom. And nobody's really paying too close of attention to what you do anyway. People are very self-consumed. Very. So, they may give you advice or they may tell you what they think you should do, and they're gonna forget about it 30 minutes later. But you are gonna try and do what they told you to do and live a lie, and it's never gonna get you anywhere. And so that's why authenticity is my number one core value. So, anything I do, I ask myself, "Is that in alignment with my authentic self?" And my next action, the next step I take is determined by the answer to that question. Yes or no. And if the answer is no, then I'll ask myself, okay, well, what do I really want? And what will get me closer to my authentic self? And personally, asking myself those questions, that inner self-reflection, always delivers the answers. The answers might come right then, they might come to me later, but they always come. And even if the answer or the inspired action that I take leads to more work, then okay, then it leads to more work. If it does, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But if I go against my authentic self and I engage in anything petty or superficial, it does not end well for me. And that is the one thing that they need to teach us in school when we're young. That's it. You got to go with who you are. And that's the biggest piece of advice that I would have for a young person.
For somebody that lacks the self-awareness to have identified any of those things at this point in their life, is there some kind of device or some kind of practice that you would suggest for somebody who is really lost in that way and has no idea what they're here for or what they really love and what they really wanna be doing?
The self-reflection piece that I talked about a bit ago will create self-awareness. Most people, unfortunately, and what I'm getting ready to say is backed by science, are not self-aware. And if you lack self-awareness, then you're behaving, mindlessly. You're definitely not taking inspired action. You're not asking yourself questions. You're just kind of on autopilot. And if that's how you're operating, then something's going to happen to wake you up so you're not going to dig into it unless you realize what's going on. And usually people have to hit some type of a breaking point or something. It doesn't necessarily have to be rock bottom, but it usually spawns from being sick of being sick or being tired of being unhappy, being tired of never getting what you want. That's usually what brings people to this self reflection stage. And if anyone's listening and you feel like you're there, I'll ask this question, and usually the first thing that comes to mind is a big clue that will lead to your life path or your purpose or your big dharma or what it is that you're supposed to be doing. Okay. Now, the question is, if you had all the time and all the money in the world, what would you be doing? And if you ask yourself that question, you are going to find some answers. You're going to have some visions, you're going to have some memories. Whatever comes to mind is connected to what you're supposed to be doing. And my advice would be to not overthink that question, but just ask that question and maybe journal about it. If you like to write, journaling's pretty powerful. You can just sit down and just start writing with no agenda. Don't judge it. Don't expect anything. Just with that question in mind, ask that question, journal about it. If things come up, they come up. If they don't, they don't. You can think about this question throughout the day. If you don't like to write, then don't write. You don't ever want to do anything that frustrates you. Just because you hear there's power in journaling, if you don't like to write, don't freaking write. If you don't like to meditate, don't freaking meditate. Find another way to connect to the silence, to calm your mind. And that could be through your breath. It could be through a multitude of different practices. And there's also tons of different meditations too. And yeah, visualization is great. And if you want to jump right in and start visualizing, you can, but your mind can play tricks on you. And if you're a person who has racing thoughts, those racing thoughts are not true. They're usually worrisome. They're usually coming from a place of fear. They're fear based, they're ego based, they're not coming from your intuition. And so you need to be really strategic about how you approach this. Because if you jump in and you just start visualizing and you haven't ever given any thought or anything into this, and some crazy answers might pop up. And if you're not self-aware, if you're completely out of alignment with your higher self, and no judgment here, I used to be that person, then you might believe those ego-based fearful thoughts and you might follow those and you might block getting the right information. And so the best way to approach this is to get down and honest with yourself and think about, what do you enjoy most? What are you really good at? What do you want to do? If time and money were in abundance, if you had all the time and money in the world, what would you be doing? And that's the first place to start. And if you were or have been or are programmed and conditioned and socialized the way that I was, then you got a lot of stuff to clear out of your subconscious because our subconscious behaviors control over 90 something percent of our behaviors. And our subconscious beliefs are what guide a lot of or guide our actions. I mean, those are what I mean. So if you're a person that's been, say you've got this grand talent, like you are this talented, I'm just going to say artist, and all you want to do is create art. But let's say you were brought up in an area surrounded by poverty. Your parents were blue collar workers, which there's not a damn thing wrong with that. But your socialization had your mindset in a place of lack. And that mindset is right embedded in your subconscious. Oh my God, I have to get to work. I have to punch this time clock. I won't get a paycheck. I won't get my health insurance benefits. I won't be able to do this. I won't be able to do that. Oh my God, I can't buy groceries. I can't do this. I got to get to work. And so you do that day in and day out, and that artistic ability starts to fade. And the more it fades, the more unhappy you become. And the next thing you know, you're 80, 90 years old and you never created that art that you wanted to create and it was all for nothing. And these are the things that you need to be thinking about. If time and money were no option, what would you do? Let's go back to, let's say you are an artist, brought up in a poverty mindset. You got to conform. You got to do this. You got to do that. You're going to make some decisions based on what's in your subconscious beliefs because you've been told, oh, shut up. You can't make any money doing that. Just stop. You need to go get a job, or you need to try to get promoted at this factory, or you need to go, try to get promoted at Walmart or wherever. Just forget about this art shit. You're not going to make money at doing that, and you have to make money. Okay, that's going to get into your subconscious, and you're going to feel like, well, I can't do that, so I got to do this. You get into survival mode. That's never going to be your life path. Ever. It's never going to lead you to your big dharma. It's just not. And so all those things that you were told growing up, or all these things that you're being told now about yourself, what are you telling yourself about yourself? What do you believe about yourself? Because if you have an unbelievable talent and you really feel like you can capitalize on that, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. Because the moment that you decide to act on what you want, the stars will align. And you stay focused on that, and it might be hard, and it might take some time, or it might not. It depends on where you stand with your beliefs about yourself. But if you stay focused and you believe that you can do it, then the universe will do the dirty work for you, and things will align. And people telling you who you are and what you should be doing and all of that, well, it won't even phase you once you get tapped in to your authentic self. So if you are going to get to that point, then you're going to have to ask yourself some questions. And you're going to have to ask yourself, well, what do I stand for? What the fuck do I stand for? And if you've never asked yourself that question, it might take some thought. And when I asked myself that question initially, years and years and years ago, it did take some thought and I didn't have the answer right away. But at this point, and it's abundantly clear and has been for a long time. It's authenticity for me. If you are if the first I mean if you are deeply rooted in let's just say deeply rooted in compassion, okay? Being compassionate, all right? And you are in an environment that isn't compassionate, then you've got to get out of that environment. And you've got to get into an environment that helps you practice being compassionate to yourself and to other people. Okay? If your one of your values, let's just say, maybe hell, maybe you prefer violence. I would hate that for anybody. But then you might want to start thinking about a way that you can get that out in a healthy manner. Maybe your career, all right, needs to be in boxing. I don't know. You need to think about what lights you up, what you stand for, and then once you feel confident that you've got some answers coming from within, not from any external source, aka freaking friend, cousin, whoever, okay, coming from inside, then you start taking action to get yourself a little bit closer to what you discovered about yourself.
I love it. I love it. I think that was great.
So I answered your question.
I guess you did. I think you did, and you did it very well.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you to everybody for tuning in to the Thought Snob podcast this week. As always, you can find us Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, anywhere you get your podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube. And of course, we always appreciate those 5-star reviews and those follows. So we'll see you guys next week. The Thought Snob podcast with Paula Swope has been brought to you by Thought Snob Media in association with Special Purpose Studios. All production, mixing, and sound engineering by me, Will Swope. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Please take a few seconds to give us 5 stars and leave a review. See you on the next Thought Snob podcast with Paula Swope.